You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan White.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. Today, John Harris and I are going to be talking about giving back. And from our experiences, photographers are in fact a generous bunch, often willing to dedicate their time and money to support causes they believe in. A simple Google search will reveal many organizations with photography or a photographer at their heart, which provide support for those who need it. Flashes of Hope, 100 Cameras, Tiny Sparrow, The Giving Lens are just a few, but our guests today have created their own organizations with the goal to raise money for charitable causes, whether it be their own fund or one that incorporates a range of charities to support. Our first guest is editorial and portrait photographer Salem Krieger, who is joining us in the studio today. Salem will talk about his organization, Art is Helping, which supports both artists and nonprofit organizations. And after a break, we'll present our conversation with Alison Wright, which we recorded at the recent Optic 2017 Photography Conference. We'll speak with Alison about her work, her tragic accident while working in Laos, and the incredible story of her recovery and how that led to her founding Faces of Hope, which raises funds for organizations Alison personally supports, particularly for children in developing nations. But first, you know the drill. Please go to iTunes and subscribe to our show and leave us a review. It really does help. And a big thank you to the many who have done just that. As recently as last week, we were ranked number 17 in the iTunes Podcast Arts category, and our listener numbers are increasing all the time. And by the way, we say it makes a difference. Upper management has just restored our bathroom privileges, so please keep coming back. A specific thanks to listener Ken Checkeye, who left us a nice message on our SpeakPipe widget, which you can find along with all of our past episodes on our landing page at bhphotovideo.com/explorer/podcast. And now Al's Gearhead Pick of the Week. Ready for this one? If you have not purchased a drone yet, and if you're not filling the sky with those little buzzy things, don't bother, okay? It's passé. PowerVision PowerRay Explorer Underwater ROV Kit is what you want. Get this, 98 feet depth rating, 150 feet of tether. You basically can fly around underwater shooting 4K video, 1080p real-time streaming. It also shoots 12 megapixel photos at 5 frames per second. You could view images on an iPhone or Android and wireless transmission for remote control. This thing's kind of cool. It looks like a Rumba that you kind of fly around underwater. Now, there's 3 flavors. You get the Explorer, which I just told you about, and then they have the second version. It's the PowerVision PowerRay Angler Underwater ROV Kit. Now, that comes with everything I mentioned, plus a Power Seeker fish finder and bait drop line. You can't make
all
this
for
stuff
$19.99?
up. That's right. Actually, $17.99 with 2 zeros afterwards, okay? And if you really want to go full tilt boogie on this one, okay, for $18.88, you can get all of the above with the Zeiss VR1 Plus goggles and, of course, the Power Seeker, Fish Finder, and Bait Drop line. That's PowerVision PowerRay Underwater ROV Kits. Operators are standing by. Salem Krieger is a New York-based photographer, adept at a range of genre, but specializing in environmental portraiture. His clients include American Airlines, Nike, Forbes, the Financial Times of London, and many others. His work is noted for his use of color, for clean aesthetic choices, and when applicable, a sense of humor. I like that part of it. Salem is currently the director of sponsorship for the New York chapter of ASMP, but is here today to talk about Art is Helping, an organization that he founded specifically to bring artists and charitable organizations together. Salem, I'm going to let you fill us in on the details. And welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
No, pleasure to be here. Thank you. Art is Helping. This started, I think, at the end of 2015, around October. I started getting volumes of charities asking me for money. Greenpeace, Planned Parenthood, City Meals on Wheels, everybody. And I'm sitting there going, I'd love to support all of you, but this is ridiculous. Well, I can't keep spending this much cash.
And why do they think photographers have so much money to just give away like this?
Or everybody thinks that. But I started thinking to myself, what is it I can do to help them? In the past, I've had organizations ask me for prints to donate and then they would sell it and raise money. And I kept thinking, this cost me money because these are inkjet prints. I have labs print these for me, time, the whole thing. I said, well, there's got to be a better method. And I came up with this idea. What if I sold some of my own personal prints and donated part of the money? That way I can cover my cost and give them something. It doesn't have to be 100%, but it's a fair deal.
Everybody wins.
So I started putting together some of my own images, and just a little light bulb went off, and I said, all my friends are creatives. What's wrong with them? I started contacting them within a very short time period. This is all in October 2015. I managed to get a chunk of artists. I'd say most probably at least 10 or 12 artists who said, Salem, great idea. I'd love to join with you. So I started asking them. And I structured it in such a way that it wasn't just a free-for-all. We have a 3-tier pricing where we have 20 by 24, 1620s, and 11 by 14s, 1,000, 500, and 250. And they're all printed by Dugal here in New York. And this way, people aren't ordering all sorts of sizes or whatever. It's just everything's very structured. The key to this whole thing actually was an organization I worked with called rational-animal.org. Susan Brandt, the founder, it's a media group that helps at-risk animals. And she's a 501c3, and that was the key to this whole thing. Because originally I was going to collect the money from purchases and then on my taxes say, well, I donated X amount of money to charity, but that doesn't work. It's not that simple to have a dollar-to-dollar ratio. I needed to get a tax 501c3. They looked at the plan. Their tax attorney said, yeah, this looks great. And Susan now collects the money for me and distributes the money for us. She sends me money, then I take care of the artist and all the printing costs. And it's been working very seamlessly.
Nice.
So at the heart of this, though, is a lot of trust. Of people have trust in you that you're going to handle this well, and the money that goes through you is going to go back to the right people and everything.
Yes, I have 27 artists now. They pretty much know me personally, and that's why they said, Salem, yeah, sure, we'd love to help you out.
Because having artists managing money often goes south. That's
and why doing it, as you mentioned, through your own taxes, it didn't work? Why did you need the...
According to some tax accountants I talked to, if I take in $1,000 and I write on my tax returns a $1,000 donation or something, somewhere along the line it doesn't work. I don't truly understand it, but it's not dollar for dollar.
Right.
The key to the whole key was getting a 501c3 in place to do this. And then when Susan said, her people said, this looked fine, we went ahead.
I think that just gives you guidelines, because otherwise it's the Wild West. So I understand that aspect of it.
Right. And people have asked me, why don't I start a 501c3? And I said, I only have a life to live. I can't deal with this. Too much paperwork.
Who are some of the artists that have joined up with you?
Well, I have a range. People from New York I know, James Weber, Daniel Meyer, Jack Perno in Chicago, which is an interesting story, actually. We sold one of his pieces. It was a large piece for $1,000. And after I sold it, shortly afterwards, Jack called me and said, Salem, I got your check. Thank you very much. And I said, oh, no problem. He goes, but I just want you to know something. I said, what's that? He goes, knowing that my work actually fed people that week was such a cool feeling. I said, you got it. That was the project. That's the core of the project, knowing that your work was actually, art is doing something. Art is helping. And that was it.
Painless. It's not like he had to go out and...
The buyer,
no one had to do anything.
The buyer got the print. Yeah. The buyer got 50%, nearly a 50% tax write-off. If she used a credit card, you got points on your card. The artist got some money for his time and effort, and a bunch of people got fed that week. So all those perks added up.
And the organizations that the money goes to, is that chosen on a case-by-case basis, or the artist makes the decision, or the buyer?
That is actually something I personally had to go through to find organizations, which was a little tricky at first, because in the beginning I was actually calling them to tell them about this program. I had a lot of pushback. And that was something I learned about nonprofits. I was surprised to hear about, because they have their operations and they make their money. So we make notice on the site also that these are just selections that I make. This has no endorsement by these companies. This is just my personal discretion who should be on there.
But in each case, how do you determine, let's say, for example, in the case you just mentioned, that money going to feed somebody, how come it went to that organization as opposed to another one?
Well, that's how the site works. The buyer looks at the artwork. She goes, oh, I love that piece. You click on it, and then the whole drop-down list of all the different nonprofits comes up. She chose City Meals on Wheels, and she chose to pick a $1,000 purchase.
Gotcha.
So you match up the art you want to the organization you want at the price range you want.
There's no smoke and mirrors. It's pretty straight of what's going on.
Sure.
And when you buy something, you know exactly what you're getting and where your money is going specifically.
And on top of that,
nice.
and on top of that, on the website, the total financial breakdown is listed there. You see where every penny goes.
That's terrific. Now, you have a wonderful publication here that features the artists that you're representing, yourself included. Was it what's the name?
Auto America.
Auto America. I was just telling you before we started recording that I was flipping through this wonderful artists represented us, and I came across two of you. I didn't know at the time they were your pictures, and I just stopped. I turned to John. I go, I love this.
Oh, thank you.
It's your pictures. It's nice. Aside from this publication and your website, how else do you get word out about this organization?
Social media is the big one.
Okay.
I've had a PR firm called the PR House that's been helping us, and basically a lot of word of mouth. I mean, social media is kind of a quagmire for me. I'm not that in depth with it, so that's always a struggle that we're going through. Dugal did a blog with us, which was really great. Adorama did a blog with us, which was really fantastic.
You should do a podcast with one of the big retailers.
Let's do it.
It's not just photography. There's artists of all
that's
varieties.
important.
That was
So,
my
yes.
key. This was not to be just a photo book. I know artists who are painters. I know sculptors. I know media artists. I know a range of people I wanted to bring in. As long as we could reproduce them
That's an issue,
as
yeah.
inkjet prints that Dugal is handling,
Right.
that was the issue.
Now,
So
you mentioned sculptors.
turn to the first page. You'll see a car.
Okay, this is Jose Maximiliano Sinani Paredes Chesches.
Right. What he's done is he's taken two Volkswagen Beetles, older ones, and welded them together. And he's done this in numerous other places. I believe this one was in Brooklyn, possibly in Bushwick. I'm not guaranteed on that. But
That's what we call double parking in Brooklyn, yes.
But it's just a beautiful aesthetic, and I love his whole idea of dealing with contemporary and the whole idea of the car population and all that.
It's very yin-yang, too, because you got the two, the whole
precisely.
thing.
But in
Precisely.
this case, the buyer is getting a inkjet print of this image, right?
Everything,
Yeah.
the end result is an inkjet.
Oh, so everything is all, okay,
That's it.
that's my,
That's
And
it.
does
okay.
Dugal donate their services, or it's a discount?
Dugal gave me a very workable price.
Right.
They were very easy. They were very good to work with, and they do beautiful work. And on top of that, their structures can handle large volume, and that's what I needed. Someone who could handle the FedEx, the packing, the whole
Oh,
everything.
yeah, they're soup to nuts
So
in that
we have
place.
this whole system is all fulfillment worked out. It's seamless.
And do any artists come to you with a specific cause that they want to be included, or do they say, "Hey, I want my stuff"? I mean, or is it always up to the buyer, or does the artist say, "Listen, I want my, the profits or the revenues from my work going to such and such a group"?
I would just tell them it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It's the buyer that dictates where the money's going.
Right.
And that's the beauty of it. The buyer has a choice to pick from and a choice of artworks to pick from.
And what are some of the organizations?
Greenpeace, City Meals on Wheels, Rational Animal. So we cover everything from
There's a long list, I know.
yeah. There's homeless issues, there's animal issues, there's environmental issues, and
There's no shortage of problems in the world that need help here.
no.
Yeah,
But at
unfortunately.
least what I've tried to do is come up with a creative way to deal with that there are all these problems out there, and have people love collecting artwork. Why not?
Let me ask: Would you do you think you would have started something like this when you were a younger man?
I actually did do something, but not like this.
Okay.
There was a time when, this must have gone back into the 90s, when I was printing up my own T-shirts. I had a company making black T-shirts that had the number 1 on the front, and it said human being, human on top and being. And I was handing them out to homeless people and then doing portraits of them wearing this, saying, remember, I'm one human being. So I had inklings of this, but years before.
Right. And is it something that just comes from your nature, your personal, or were there projects going back to related to your photography career that might have sparked something?
I think there's
like
something in all of us that just wants to help. I don't know how that always manifests, but there's just something that's inside all of us that wants to do something. And being in the creative arts, I always said, well, what is it that I offer best? And making art is what I do.
It's really funny that, if you're in New York City, seeing panhandlers is nothing unusual. Unfortunately, it's increasing a lot. And I'll ignore many of them, but every once in a while, you turn around, you drop some change or $1 into a thing for whatever reason it is. And last night, we were leaving the Lee Friedlander speech at the New York Library. And on the side, on 42nd Street, you got all the usual craziness going on at 8:30 in the evening. There were 2 little girls standing there playing violins. And maybe they were 7, 10 years old. Little girls just playing. And I stopped because, again, they were creating this music. It was child music. It was, rough. But the fact that you have these two people out there creating this stuff in the middle of all this crazy, and I just had to drop $1 into each of the things. They're baskets. But it's true. I mean, if art does something, it makes you want to give a little bit more. I think there's something to that, be it visual or audio or something. But music, art, makes you want to give, makes you want to do something.
So much of the arts, there's many factions to it. There's many pieces of the pie. Some of it's just decorative. Some of it has real purpose. I wanted to do this project because I also knew that art is helping, is proactive. It was doing something, was manifesting something. I love to collect art. I have pieces in my apartment, and I love looking at them. But I wanted to go further, and that was why the title "Art is Helping" it's a proactive name.
What are some of your pet organizations that you have a particular interest in?
Oh, Rational Animal. We did a whole campaign for the city. It's called the New York City Mayor's Alliance, where we did a campaign to help promote spay and neuter for the animals in shelters.
Oh, is that okay? I was just going to ask you what the goal of that organization was. Okay.
They have different goals. One of them is called their Mother's Comfort Project, where they have beds actually sewn. We actually have a group of people, about 25 people, sew these little beds, soft blanket things, and we go to the shelters, clean out their cages, and put these in there for the cats and dogs because they're sitting on stainless steel all day, or they're sitting in their litter boxes. This was just a very simple project that Susan Brandt came up with, and it's really effective.
Wow. I think what's neat about this, too, is the fact that for all the participants, it's basically a passive activity. In other words, you're sending your file to Dugal, and I imagine they're keeping the files there, and somebody places an order. It's just happening.
Exactly. Everything's in place. Somebody makes the order. We collect the money. I pay Dugal. They print, pack, ship, the whole thing.
Is it kind of running itself? I imagine setting this whole thing up must have been very time-consuming.
The biggest problem is like any business now. It's social media, getting the word out all the time. Mm-hmm. And certain times of year are more effective. I know I'm gearing up right now to push harder because when we're going to go into the fall, we have the tax write-off season.
Mm-hmm. Ah, yes.
The summer things tend to die down a little bit. People aren't thinking about it so much.
And how much time do you spend working on this, would you say?
What year is this?
This is 2017, last I checked. Lots of time.
In between everything else I'm doing, I spent all the time. I just had a Kickstarter campaign that ended, unfortunately, unsuccessfully. But it was related to this project. It was called Face Without a Name. My assistant, Sylvia Perricon, and I were photographing homeless people around New York and supplying them what we called a comfort supply bag, which was everything from like hand creams, toothpaste, dental floss, underwear, socks, T-shirts, in exchange for their labor. They get paid for their time. They were on camera, and I'm shooting them. I also gave them each $25 cash. So, and then we were going to compile this to make another book, which was going to be sent to 100 senators and 435 House of Representatives. But we didn't meet the goal on Kickstarter. So I'm restructuring how I might revise that again.
You just dust yourself off and keep going. I like that. That's good.
Do the artists, they offer certain works, or is it something that they can kind of update regularly and add more?
There are limitations in that some of the artists are showing galleries, and I said to them, don't give me any work that you're showing in galleries because there's going to be issues.
Right.
I need works that are unlimited editions because we have no idea. You might sell one piece, you might sell 400,000.
Yeah, that's right.
So a lot of artists have to think about exactly what was available to do that. But once they started supplying work, they loved how they saw the layouts and they saw everything. And Xerox had sent copies of the book to every artist involved in the project. And they've been a great sponsor, along with Dugal, Pixie, Site Welder.
But everything is basically on the site. I mean, and Site Welder is the organization that builds the site. But if people really want to find works to purchase, go to the site. And
that's the easiest thing. All the information's there. Very simple.
Right. And what's the volume now? How often are things being purchased, and how's it?
During the summer, we've noticed it slowing down. It was pretty decent for a little while. We sold a bunch of prints, and high-end prints, actually, $1,000 range, which that was great. We sold a print not too long ago by Daniel Serene, who had photographed an actor who was hanging out in Central Park one day just doing some pantomime. Well, 1974, who was the actor? Turned out to be Robin Williams.
Oh, I think Petapixel ran that picture.
It
was black and white,
It was black and white, and Daniel was my friend, and he let me sell that for him.
What's the most unusual piece that you've had so far? If there's anything that stands out, because again, you're soliciting artwork. What was maybe the most surprising piece that came through, if there was?
I see. I'm so used to so much imagery, and nothing really shocks me.
I get that.
I value artwork that has some kind of insight to it, or something that's really beautifully done. My personal tastes. I had to edit this and Yeah, I would show it to people to make sure there was a general range of work going into this book, because this is not geared towards the art world per se. This is not, Mary Boom. This is not the art world. This is anybody out globally who's on the internet who appreciates this and the project itself.
And what's the range of sizes of prints? Because Dugal could cover buildings. I know what they're capable of doing.
We sell the 3 prints. 1114 is the smallest for $250, 1620 at $5, and 20 by 24 at $1,000.
So all the prices are the same,
exactly the same,
regardless of the artist.
Exactly.
I like that. I think that really, I like the way it levels the field. So essentially, that's it. You have 3 price ranges, 3 sizes.
Exactly,
That's
and the
simple.
buyer again chooses the image, and the buyer chooses the price point.
Gotcha.
It's kind of click, done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. And do you want to speak a little bit about the artist Suzanne Krieger?
Oh, well, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. Hi, Mom. My mom has been an artist most of her life, and I'm sure that somewhere along the line that had an effect on me. And the image you're looking in there, one of the images was an output on a Mac computer she had. And the funny story about that is I went to her apartment one day and I said, "Oh, Mom, what's that?" She goes, "Oh, I just printed this out." I said, "Oh, great. Let me see the file. I'll save it and we'll back it up." And she goes, "A what?" And I said, "A file." She had no idea what the computer was. She said, "Oh, I thought it was like a sketch device where you draw something, you draw it, and then you print it out and turn the machine off."
It's not?
So, no. No, but here, and in the end of at the end of the story, the funny thing is she was actually making one of a type images because she wasn't saving anything.
Okay.
I just happened to be fortunate enough because I would always have my camera with me and I would photograph her works. And lo and behold, I ended up putting it in the book. And I've gotten a lot of good response on her work. Yeah. She's only 94, so.
She's got a long way to go. Do you want to mention some of the other artists that are involved?
Daniel Meyer was a really great friend of mine out in California. He did a whole series on architecture, or the blandness of architecture and contemporary social critique on architecture. Julie Gross, a fabulous painter here in New York. She does these beautiful designs. Jack Perno in Chicago. I know commercially he does a lot of fashion work, but he was applying this process of 20 by 24 Polaroids into a lot of his work. James Weber, very interesting. He was taking a large format camera. James, don't hold me to this, but I believe you told me it was larger than an 11 by 14. It was even bigger, but shooting on plates to make photographs out west that looked like they were from the last century, or actually the century before. But they're
My phone has an app that does that, by the way. Don't tell them.
I'm sure it does. It's just Stephanie Dworkin did a beautiful series on Coney Island with I believe a Holga, which is a plastic lens camera.
That caught my eye. I was looking at those. Those
Jada
are terrific
Fabricio.
images.
Yeah.
These are some great shots too. Jada Fabricio.
Jada is very interesting psychologically. I love her work with the hair coming out of the water force. It's just, I think it's a nice mix of, it gives a large range of different thinking patterns.
Absolutely. It's good.
And
That alleyway shot. I'm a Brooklyn boy. I know exactly where that alley is from Coney Island.
Oh.
And I stopped and I go, I know where that is. That's
Stephanie
a great picture.
Dworkin.
Yeah.
Stephanie. And you'd mentioned that it took a little bit, or maybe it still does, for some of the organizations to kind of come around because they have their embedded ways. But have they since
I've
kind of
totally
come to it?
stopped calling them.
You have?
Totally. Yeah.
Okay.
I found the pushback from them was it was surprising to me that when I would call them and say, "I have a way to help you make money. I'm trying to raise money for you and it's not costing you anything. All I wanted was to put our logo on their website so we can get inbound traffic so their audience knows it was there." We've gotten responses, "Oh, that's great. We'll get back." Never hear from them. It was just very unusual dealing with nonprofits. So I decided to put the disclaimer on there saying these are just my personal discretion, who I would like to support. And that's how the list grows. Some of this was driven by my thinking, what is art and what is the function of art? And I think every artist, photographer, painter, sculptor, everybody, how do you see yourself as an artist? Are you just a content provider making stuff? Are you just adding to more consumer merchandising? Or is your material having some effect? And they're most probably all valid. I tend to lean towards can you make work, have a great time doing it, and having a result with it that's beneficial. My commercial work is different because it's an applied work. I'm working with clients to get their results satisfied. And that's a great thing too. I was just telling Alan earlier, I was in the North Pole, for instance, with the National Guard. And I'm standing there and I'm thinking to myself, first off, how many people on the planet get to go to the North Pole? I'm up here photographing. Oh, and I'm getting paid to do this. So there are those moments where you go, this is pretty amazing. And in that same vein, having art is helping is my art feeds people, helps organizations like the animal organizations, helps the environment with Greenpeace. There's even radio stations, non-commercial radio stations listed on there because they have 24/7 streaming of great music, which to me is a real perk having out there on the internet. So those are the larger, that's the tip of the iceberg thing.
This whole concept works well because A, you're supporting artists. That's a good thing. And you're supporting people who have trouble feeding themselves.
That was the whole key right
That's
there.
right there. That's the whole thing. But it's everybody gets something out of it, no matter what your needs are.
Well, the buyer also, I mentioned earlier, the buyer not only gets artwork, they get a partial tax deduction.
And they know that it wasn't just a selfish purchase. No, they actually gave something with that purchase. So that's good. I like that a lot. That works well.
Right. It breaks the mold of just giving money and walking away, and that's that.
Yeah.
Does it feel good?
Oh, yeah. It's a very cool feeling. Okay. It's cool to get anything done. I'm amazed at anything. Even if I don't like what somebody does, I'm like, wow, give him credit. At least he got it done.
That's it. Yeah.
It takes so much to get anything off the ground these days.
Well, like I think Woody Allen once said, 90% of life is just showing up. So there you go. All right. Well, if our listeners would like to check out more work and look into this project, where should they go?
artishelping.com. And if you want to send me an email, it's right there on the website.
Okay.
All right.
And this will be on go to the B&H.
B&H
landing
web.
page.
Yeah,
We'll
we're
put
going to
the
have all
link
this
there for
information
sure.
on our landing page as well when this podcast goes live. And it's terrific. Salem, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Terrific organization and great project, and want to see it grow.
Thanks, man. Appreciate your time. Thank you both.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, and we come back. We're going to be speaking with Alison Wright. Stay tuned.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the B&H Photography Podcast. Send us a tweet at BHPhotoVideo, #BHPhotoPodcast.
We are back at Optic 2017 with Alison Wright, who, according to her website, is the 2013 National Geographic Traveler of the Year. Not too many people can say that. That's pretty cool. That's pretty good stuff. You have a special project that you have been working on. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
So, yes. In the year 2000, I was on assignment in Laos, and I got in a terrible, devastating bus accident. And I nearly lost my life on a remote jungle road in Laos. And the people around me were killed. I was pulled off a burning bus by a couple of Good Samaritan. A couple men came in and pulled me off this bus and saved my life. And when I came to, I realized that very quickly that I was in very bad shape. I had broken my back, my pelvis, all my ribs. My arm was half severed off, and I was in a remote country with no health care. And these villagers dragged me to their village and saved my life by sewing my arm back on with a needle and thread, no painkillers, nothing. And they stayed with me for 10 hours, and I managed to get out through the kindness of strangers. A British aid worker found me and drove me to Thailand, 8 hours in the back of a pickup truck. And I was 3 weeks in intensive care in Thailand, and they didn't think I was going to make it. And when I came to, was given the pretty grim prognosis that I would most likely probably never walk again. And I was medevac back to the States, and it was a very long struggle for me to get back to my life. I had to learn how to walk again, and the carrot at the end of the stick was really getting back to doing this work that I love so much. And I had more than 30 surgeries, and I remember this doctor coming in and saying, you better think about what you want to do with your life now, because you're most likely never going to work as a photographer again. You're most likely never going to walk again. And I was like, really? Because I plan on climbing Mount Kilimanjaro for my birthday next year. And he sent me to a psychiatrist saying I was in denial. And
You're my kind of person. I like you already. I do.
And actually, I did it. It took me a couple years, but I made it to the top of Kili, and But for me, this was a really a pivotal, life-changing experience. I didn't want to change my life. It reconfirmed for me that I was on the right path. I really, really wanted to get back to being a photojournalist, a photographer, and traveling the world. And
How long had you been working as a photographer before your accident?
I had already published, I think, 3 books at this point. You know,
Okay.
I had been working in Asia for 7 years at that point. I had worked on a newspaper for a number of years. I've been pretty well established for probably 10, 12 years, you know, working as a photographer.
So you would be starting literally from scratch if you decided to take a different route at this point.
Yeah, but you know what was interesting is that when I couldn't shoot, I actually wrote. And I wrote a book. It's called Learning to Breathe, One Woman's Journey of Spirit and Survival. And that actually changed the whole trajectory of my life because I actually did better financially writing a book than I made ever on a photo book, ironically. I'm from California. It actually gave me the money to move to New York. So talk about making lemonade out of lemons. But I've always written. I write with my photographs. But you know, I was bedridden on a morphine drip for months. You know, staring at a ceiling, which was really challenging for someone like me. That's, you know, an avid scuba diver, kayaker, hiker. You know, photojournalist, and here I'm suddenly bedridden. So for me, there was a strong story to tell about overcoming and the kindness of strangers. And so I had always photographed this kind of work, working in sort of post-disaster conflict areas, documentary work, travel. But what changed for me is that it brought a whole new empathy to my work. And I always hoped that making a photograph would make a difference. But then it occurred to me, why not me? And so this experience did for me was inspired me to start my own nonprofit, which is called the Faces of Hope Fund. It's called the Faces of Hope. And it's a fund that it helps women and children in crisis through education and healthcare. And as I speak, or you know, when I go around, I show my photos and people are moved, what can I do to help? They can give to my fund, this foundation, and every cent goes directly back into the communities I photograph in. Every cent. Nothing goes to me, doesn't go towards the work. It literally goes back to...
Which are some? Could you give us names of some of these communities? Where are these places?
So when I covered the earthquake in Haiti.
Okay.
So for me, it also was challenging for me that I just couldn't stand there and say, oh, I hope that making a photo will make a difference. I wanted to do more. So I raised thousands of dollars for tents for Haiti after the earthquake. I was there right after the earthquake happened.
But with the sale of photos or
No.
in all capacities?
No, I have in my nonprofit, I have money. And then what I do is I partner with nonprofits on the ground. And why it initially started is because I wanted to connect photography and philanthropy. And the very first thing that I did is because I wrote this book, I went back. I knew that for me, I needed to get over the sort of post-traumatic stress I was having about getting back on a bus because this is how I was going to have to continue traveling around the world. Right. And so I went back to this village, and I needed to get back on the same bus in the same place.
What's your time frame?
3 years. 3
Okay.
years after the accident. And when I got to this village, everybody came pouring out, and they couldn't believe that I was alive. Wow. They couldn't believe that I was walking, and I couldn't believe that they remembered me. And it was like this really very tearful reunion. And so that was the inspiration for me wanting to start this foundation, because I thought, oh my gosh, I want to help these people. I want to give something back to them.
And you obviously made a difference to them as well.
Oh,
that was, sure,
huge.
two-way.
And so the first thing I did with this money is I brought 5 American doctors and $10,000 worth of medical supplies back to that little village in Laos to get a little clinic going. And that was like so moving that I thought, this is what I want to do wherever I work.
Yeah.
And that was the really cool thing. So then when I got to Haiti, I could see something, I knew that hopefully my pictures would show people, educate them, but I could see something tangible. At least I knew.
Had you ever been to Haiti before?
No, I didn't know the
Because
first
I've
thing
been there
about
several times, and so I know what you
I didn't know the first thing about Haiti.
Yeah.
I got sent there, and you're hoping that it, these pictures will somehow get out and they'll make it. But you don't know. Like as a photojournalist, I think more and more it feels sort of like vacuous. Like who's seeing this? Is this doing anything? I mean, seriously, sometimes I just cry because I feel like, what am I doing with my life? Like, this is so, is this really doing anything? Because I literally just came back from Haiti 2 weeks ago, and I thought, God, nothing's changed here. What was I even doing all this for? So you don't really know. So this for me was, something, and I know it's like it's like digging your way out the teaspoon. It's so little, but you know what? If we all just do something little, it's something. Something's better than nothing.
Well, one person drove you 8 hours in the back of a pickup truck that saved your life.
Exactly. Like, that's what I think.
Yeah.
What kindness would you do for a stranger?
Exactly.
What kindness would I do for a stranger? So it's more like the act. And then this idea with Faces of Hope, it's also this idea where it's connecting the visual story. So then, because I do partner with different nonprofits, and a lot of them are small and grassroots, like sending girls to school in Africa or India, helping people, like after I covered the tsunami in Sri Lanka. I just came back from a horrible story where girls were being raped, little girls being raped by their teachers in the Congo. And there was an amazing woman that's having to live in seclusion. She started a shelter for these girls because nobody wants them. Nobody's helping them.
They're shunned by everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Then their parents kick them out because they're pregnant. So little girls are there with babies. So, I was able to support her. And the money does go to work with people that are on the ground. It's not like me just handing out money. It has to be vetted.
Gotcha.
It goes through like a nonprofit, and it's another foundation, so it's being vetted again.
There's accountability.
It's all accountability, exactly. And then what I do is I do a series of pictures on my Faces of Hope website saying, I saw this, I vetted it, and if you feel moved by this, you can look into it and you can give to them. So it's also creating an awareness that you might not see that are small grassroots organizations in these places where I work.
It sounds like you have an ability to act quickly too, because
Yes.
it's small enough and because it's you can get something there
Exactly.
quickly.
And it is. I can do it very
can juggle
quickly.
what it
Yeah.
goes, yeah.
And that's what these people need, like, right away. And that's the frustration. I do a lot of humanitarian aid organization photography, and it's so amazing how frustrating it can be to see how some of these are run and how long it can take, and so I know I'm kind of small potatoes, but this is different. This is really trying to help on a visual level, on an educational level, and on a personal level, I know that I'm doing it for myself as well, like I just need to be able to give back in some way because people have done that for me. And it's just, in a way, I just wouldn't be here right now if it weren't for the kindness of strangers.
Obviously, yeah. And the money that comes in is strictly through people who are aware of your work and what you're doing, and they want to help and they want to support. So they're donating their money, and then you're putting it out to where it needs to go.
Yeah. So I am like an established nonprofit, but I'm under an umbrella organization of another Tides Foundation, which I don't know if that's important for you to know, but I'm under their auspices, and they are, in fact, so it is all tax deductible, and they vet it and make sure that, who I am donating my money to is an organization they are an established nonprofit. And that's just how I work it, because I don't want to be a big nonprofit that has a board and is that's my job, because my job is really to be a photographer first and foremost.
Do you work with any other photographers with this particular project, or is this solo you
this
shooting?
This is solo me. Like, I am doing the whole show. I mean, and it is, it's overwhelming sometimes. And that's why I'm just kind of keeping it at the level that I'm at. I'm not doing big fundraisers. I mean, this is just, it's a personal thing, and it's really about bringing awareness to people that are doing amazing things, and also bringing awareness to certain problems that are out there. I just came back from Bangladesh photographing these Rohingya refugees, 300,000 of them. They think there's maybe up to 500,000 of them that are there, that are on the beaches of, Cox's Bazar. It's absolutely heartbreaking, these stories,
And are all of these based through assignments that you've had, or self-assignments? And do you photograph everything that your fund is also contributing to, or you try to?
No, most things are like actual assignments that I'm doing, that I've been hired to my work. But so I'm coming out with my 10th book. That's coming out in the fall. It's called Human Tribe. So all of my bodies of work are really looking at this idea of this universal human connection. How are we connected? And that, I feel, is always my theme, And so this book, Human Tribe, is sort of, I've been to now like 150 countries. And my big takeaway is that no matter how different we look, we all want the same thing the world over. We all want to love and be loved. We all want a little money in our pocket, enough to get by. We want safety and health for ourselves, our friends, our family, our kids to be educated. We want, our families to be okay. And we make it more complicated than it needs to be. So the theme of my work is just looking at, how are we connected? And so I'm always looking for assignments that can sort of like pull these books together, because these books take years to do. A book I did, Faces of Hope, was on children all over the world, and that was looking at children's rights.
Does the theme of the book come first? I mean, or is it something that you?
No, it's more like, it ebbs and flows. Like, it's not like I say, okay, I'm going to do this, and then that's the only work I do, because I'm doing a lot of other work. Like this latest book on portraits is just an accumulation of years of pulling different portraits together. The book on children, I was working as a newspaper photographer years ago when I first started, and then I got an assignment to go to Nepal for 3 weeks, and it was for UNICEF, and I just fell in love with Nepal. They hired me, and I didn't leave for over 4 years. So
they canceled the flight again. I don't know what it is. I keep going back to LaGuardia.
That's like you in New Jersey, right?
That's me in New Jersey. I have the same
My family's
excuse.
like, "Are you ever coming home?" And so that turned into a book. And then I ended up getting really involved with the Tibetan refugee situation, and then that turned into a book. And then when the Dalai Lama heard what I was doing, he met with me, and then I ended up traveling with him for 15 years. Then that turned into a book. So it just, like, the next book just keeps evolving.
Obviously, you went through a big change after your accident. Do you approach your subjects or photography differently? Not just, and obviously you have a goal now. There's a path that you're following. But is your approach to photography different than it was prior to all of this happening to you?
It's brought a whole new empathy to my work.
Okay.
Yes, I truly know what it's like to suffer. And there's something that I feel that they feel that I know what it's like to suffer. Like when I'm with people, I don't know, it's very raw, and also, the way that I approach people, I mean, I'm small, I'm 5'2", I'm a woman. There's something also that's there, this dance of like, and I'm carrying all this equipment, and I'll just be, like approaching people, like to photograph them. And it's kind of putting yourself out there saying, hey, I'm willing to be vulnerable. Will you be vulnerable with me? And a lot of times I don't even speak the language. So you're kind of having to communicate in this heartfelt connection, this heartfelt way that...
You're dealing on emotional levels.
Yeah. And I find that really, truly beautiful. To some people, it's very intimidating. They look at it like, oh my gosh, how do you go into a place and you don't speak the language and it's so awkward?
That's when you first learn what communication is.
Yeah, and I just think that to me is why I do what I do. And I think I do it really well. Like that, to me, it's like, how do you go in there and really, truly capture that, And it's funny because I'll go up, like even when I'm doing like tours or something, like people laugh because I'll go up to somebody and when I touch them or move them, I'll go up and I'll say, can I touch you? Is it okay to touch you? And people laugh like, they don't understand what you're saying. Why do you say that? And I'm like, because it's a sign of respect.
Yeah.
And they know that. They might not understand what I'm saying, but they get that. And that's huge. Like if you're touching somebody, you should ask them, is it okay to touch you? And, it's...
Alan, remember that, please.
And it's a good...
Yeah, by the way, I've really been behaving. Usually I'm the wise ass in these things. I've been behaving myself with you because your story is just amazing. It's awesome.
Can I ask, though, do you sense that prior to the accident that you didn't have the empathy, or is it something that you look back? Because as a photographer, that's kind of one of our core traits, empathy and the ability to kind of feel and show that. And did you feel that you gained that or you didn't have it prior, looking back?
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
What I thought was really interesting is I actually started this foundation about 10 years ago, this fund. And I actually got really heavily criticized for it because there was this idea that you should not get that emotionally involved in your subjects. And I sort of came from that schooling of, I'm
you're
not
a journalist.
Yeah,
That
I mean,
idea.
I personally wouldn't call myself a pure photojournalist. I don't do that kind of work anymore because I don't work purely for news. And, I have a different take on things. I mean, I do have a way of looking at the world where I package it in a way where I did used to do that kind of work. And I just felt like frustrated at the outlets. And I felt like the way that I want to show my work or get my message across is being too hindered. Like I got tired of showing the problems all the time. I wanted to start showing the solutions because I felt like it's a page turner, like everything was so depressing. So if you look at my work and my books, there's hope in there. You're looking at things that are showing. That's why I do a lot more of the aid humanitarian work. There's a lot more, and the way that I do the books, because you can see through my exhibition that's how I feel like it can help people more, because you become more engaged. You think, oh, hey, you know what? I'd like to see these people hang around on the planet a little bit longer. I see that this is helping. But if you're just like, oh my God, like here's like another thing, like another bomb went off, another, this more war, like,
And are you earning $1 on their suffering?
Yeah.
That's another way it could be interpreted by a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a really valid,
Sure.
When I was just back in Haiti, God, they just hated, now they like hate you because you're coming in and taking pictures.
Well, it's like that. It's a joke in a sense where, a photographer stumbles upon a person dangling by their fingers from a log in a stream in a runaway flood. Decision has to be made. Am I shooting this wide angle or telephoto? And that's because to a lot of photographers, that's the way they're wired. No,
Yeah.
You put down the camera sometimes, or in your case, use the camera.
I have put down the camera. I have a picture that I just showed today of a woman weeping on the beach. Her hands are covering her face. She's devastated because she lost a couple of her children to the sea after the tsunami in Sri Lanka. And as I was photographing her, she picked herself up and threw herself in the ocean, tried to drown herself. I didn't want pictures of a woman drowning herself.
I know which picture you're talking about.
Yeah, I literally
wow.
picked her up and I threw my body on her and I held her down until somebody could help me to drag her away and help her. Those aren't the pictures that I want. That's not my story. Mm-hmm. That's not my drive in life. That's not what I'm striving to look for. So it's not that I didn't have empathy. It's more that I felt like, there was something socially that we were not supposed to be as involved. And I just said, hey, you know what? If that makes me an activist, that's a term I can live with. And now what's interesting is I see a lot of people now are starting funds and foundations, and that's great. I think we should, I think that we should use our photography to help in whatever capacity, in whatever way it takes. And if we can do that more directly, then I don't know. I don't know what the answers are, but that's the small little way that I see of how I want to handle my work.
I wanted to ask this earlier, and you've answered it in several different ways, which I think is great, but this idea of making a difference with a photo, with just an image, do you think it's possible to make a difference? Have you seen that happen? Have you seen the image itself really turn something around?
Somebody asked me that, and do you think that an image can make a difference? And so I threw the question back out to the audience, because I ask myself that every single day. And I'll admit to you, I have been tearfully crying sometimes with a friend saying, what am I even doing with my life? I give up everything. I'm not doing this for the money. I give up being with friends, with family, with life to do this. And for what? Like coming back from Haiti, I was like, why am I even doing this? People are still, life's not improving. What am I doing this for? And yet, so when somebody asked me that same question in the audience, kind of picture change a situation, can picture change a life? And I throw that question out to you and the audience. I said, is anybody in this room, after seeing my presentation today, is there anybody that's walking out of here feeling at all changed, inspired, moved, motivated, or different in any way? And a number of people said yes. And I said, great. My job is...
You earned your paycheck today.
Yeah, thank you. That's all I ask, because I had to give up on, can I change the world? Believe me, that's how I started out, and that's what I hoped for, but it's not going to happen, I mean, of course we see photos and we get so moved. There's always going to be iconic photographs, and it's a wonderful thing when we each, we might have our own little moment of iconic, something. Like for me, Tibet Girl at National Geographic, that was like I had a little moment in the sun with that. That it's not life-changing, but at least it got some recognition.
Were there any photo books that you looked at growing up that you said that's what I want to do, or anything off the top of your head?
Oh my goodness, yeah. I mean, I love the black and whites, which is funny because I don't shoot black and white, but they're still my favorite. Like,
I was going to ask you about that, if you shot monochrome at all.
I did. I shot black and white, of course, for years because that's how long I've been doing it. But, Eugene Smith and Salgado, Dorothea Lange, Jakob Rees for the content, and Lewis Hine, and I wanted to be those people. I thought those were the changers and the documentarians that, maybe my work will be important in 100 years, and I'm working on this amazing project now. Again, it's a long-term project, but it's just looking, women working around the world, and just how it's so fascinating to me, just how I think they're in developing countries, how they're going to change the world. And so I get into this idea of these long-term meaty projects, and so I feel like I should be 150 years old because it takes me like 20 years to work on each book, But there's something really... It's funny because I used to think books were so amazing, and now I get really stressed because they feel so... It's like you're carving something out on a rock.
Yeah. We started talking a little bit about black and white and monochrome you shot. One of the things I noticed is that often in your photographs, there's sort of a muted palette or monochromatic palette. And you have one little piece of color go boom, which is a great design game, I always call it, but it seems that you do the life. There's a whole stuff going on, and you have one piece of color that kind of anchors your eye
Punctuation,
to that
yeah,
picture. And I noticed it a few times. It's like there's always a spot of orange or red or blue in the middle of something. And are you doing that consciously? Because it's there a lot. I mean, I love it. I'm not calling it gimmicky, but it's something that I've used myself where I just try to pull a color in. Is that a conscious effort, or it's just the way it works out?
No, I'm definitely conscious of color. I mean, that's why I love color so much. I mean, because I think you have to really think about color. You know, it's just, to me, that's part of the imagery, you know, and because now, especially because I work so much in Africa and Asia, like...
color is amazing there because it's symbolic in everything, sure.
And it was really interesting because I started out, when I went to Asia, I was still shooting black and white. And when I got this assignment for UNICEF, they had 600 rolls of color transparency film waiting for me. Can you imagine? And I was like, oh my gosh, I guess I have to learn how to shoot color. And
That's almost a gig of data.
And I never even got to see it, you know? I mean, I was like, oh my, you know.
Really?
Yeah.
You shot it and sent it back?
I just shoot it and send it back. And I mean, transparency, that's so unforgiving.
Totally.
And, you know, it was... So I was shooting both for a long time, and then, you know, and I've been, you know, I've had to go through the whole gambit here. Now it's like, you know, then going into the digital thing, we kept hoping that would like go away, and then it didn't, and so we'd shoot digital and color.
There's some people still hoping it'll go away.
Yeah, and now I'm like,
How'd we do
God,
without
this
it?
is not what I signed up for. This whole digital thing, it is really, but so it's. Yeah, because I think you have to be very careful with color. It's something that I don't want to have overtake the subject or what I'm trying to say. It's got to accent. It's got to work in the favor. And as
it does in your work, yes.
And
you use the word accent, and that's really a good way of describing how you use a lot of the colors. They just accent little parts of it.
And I
it's done
mentioned
nicely.
in my talk that it's very. I studied photojournalism, but I also studied painting as my undergrad. I did photojournalism and painting, and I still study painting. Like whenever I go in the museums, and you know Rembrandt and Vermeer, I'm always looking like what's the light source. I'm very much into natural light, and you know what is that. You know how is that adding to the. You know, to the image and not have it be too overpowering. And then after living overseas for 10 years, I got every disease you can imagine: malaria, typhoid, dysentery. I got like Giardia and dysentery like 15 times. I got a worm in my head, which is definitely not a first date story. I got worms in my lungs. I got bot flies. I mean, it was like over the top. So eventually I landed in the Tropical Disease Hospital in London for 4 months, and they said, you can't go back to Asia for at least a year. And I don't want to waste time, so I applied to UC Berkeley, and I thought I didn't want to come back to the States without health insurance. So I went back. I applied to get my graduate degree. So I went to UC Berkeley and got my master's degree in visual anthropology, studying culture through photography and film, which was a great way to bring all my Tibet work together, because I've been photographing the Tibetan culture in exile for the 4 years I was living in Nepal. And it was, UC Berkeley they said, well, we don't even know what visual anthropology is, but it sounds like a great idea. So I wrote my own program there, but it was really cool. I made it work for me. It was a great program. And I got my first book contract out of my master's thesis, The Spirit of Tibet. And, you know, that was the whole idea, was all this Tibet work. And I used their words, their stories with their photos, because I was very interested in, you know, there were 120,000 Tibetan refugees. How was a culture surviving without a country? And that was the whole premise of all this work that I've been doing. And this is what I talk about, like pursuing your own passion, that I was just kind of doing that on my own time while living in Asia. It's like going to all 57 Tibetan refugee settlements. And that's when the Dalai Lama got wind of that, and then we became friends, and the rest is history. But
people, if our listeners would like to see more of your work and see what you're doing, what sites should they go to?
My website is www.alisonwright.com.
And that's WRIGHT.
And it's Alison with one L.
With one L, yes.
ALISONWRIGHT.
And for Faces of
And
Hope?
facesofhope.org.
Okay.
And follow me on Instagram,
Yeah.
Alison Wright Photo.
But just another, let's facesofhope.org. Let's
Yeah.
use this to
Use that as your
to
starting
do what we
point,
can,
folks.
you know?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Please, thank you.
Okay. All right, Alison Wright, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Okay, that's another fine show. Thanks to Alison and Salem for sharing their time and thoughts. Remember to pull over to the side of the road the first chance you get and subscribe to our show on iTunes. On behalf of John Harris and Jason Tables, I'm Alan Weitz, and thank you so much for joining us today.